You stretch every day, but the next morning you feel just as stiff as the day before. Why is that happening? Here's why it happens and how you can actually make progress. I used to spend hours stretching my shoulders, hamstrings, hips, but nothing was actually working. I was always getting back to the starting point. And I was getting so frustrated because I was like, if I'm working so much on stretching, why do I always end up to the starting point? So, to finally find a solution, I became obsessed with the subject. So I started to study the anatomy of the body, how stretching is working, are you actually stretching? Are you stretching your muscles, your nerves, your tendons, your muscle fascia, or what is going on exactly while we are stretching, and what is lasting and what is not lasting, and why. The first thing that I found out is that the most important part of stretching is that to stretch we have to relax our body. So I want to share with you the first mistake that I was making, which was stretching right before my gym training. It will never work because after a heavy training in the gym, your nervous system is too taxed. It cannot relax because you were stressing it. So the first thing is that if you want to become more flexible, you have to stretch before the training, or much better, far away from the training, when you can relax and stay relaxed. I wanna say immediately that you can kinda stretch before the training is not optimal, but you can stretch the muscle that you're going to train. Like if you're going to train legs, you cannot stretch legs because basically you are just getting a new range, and you're going to work in that new range with a heavy load, and you're not used to work in that new range, which is still weak, with such a high load that you use in your normal training. So the problem about stretching before the training is that you can get injured. So what I started was to create a 10-15 minutes routine in the morning right before my lunch, and I was training right before my dinner, so there was enough time between the two sessions. I know that is kinda messy to have to training because you can say, oh, but I have to train twice a day. Yeah, but it's only 10-15 minutes, and it's something that you can do even at home. You don't need special equipment to just do a normal stretching. So the first question that we can ask ourselves is that why our nervous systems is behaving that way? Because the goal of the nervous system is to protect us. So if a new range is not safe, the nervous system is going to contract our muscles. It's basically telling us you cannot go that far, because the nervous system controls flexibility way more than the muscles do. And many people think that the muscles are involved in the stretching because I'm stretching, so I'm stretching the muscles, but the reality is quite different. So to make something work, the first step is to understand how it's working. Now we're talking about passive stretching, but there is also another kind of stretching, which is active stretching, usually what people call mobility. I mean, there is a kind of misunderstanding about mobility because many people think that when you are just moving like your shoulder in this way, you are doing mobility, but actually you are just warming up. You are just letting some blood flowing in the joint and in the muscles that you are using. Like if I do this, some blood is going to my shoulders, I'm warming up my shoulders, but I'm not doing any active stretching or any mobility, if you want to call it that way. So why mobility is important? Why active stretching is important? Because when you stretch, you get a new range, but if you don't teach the body to work in that new range with some specific movements and some small loads, the body will be like, okay, you're getting a little bit more flexible right now, but you don't really need it because you are not working in that new range. So I will go back to the starting point. And that's why we end up always in the same situation, and we get so frustrated because you stretch, but you never get any more flexible. So now we have 2 points. We know where we have to stretch, which is when we can relax, and also we know that we have to work actively in that new range. Now the third part is breathing. Breathing is important because it allows us to extend our range of flexibility. I want to give you a simple example. If you try to stretch and you hold your breath, you will reach a point. So I hold my breath, I try to stretch like my hamstrings or whatever you want to stretch, and then you will reach a plateau. Then if you gently exhale, you will see that you will get a wider range. That's why breathing is so important. You cannot just breathe randomly. You have to hold your breath, try to stretch, go down, whatever you're doing, and then exhale. And then you repeat this process a few more times during like a 60 seconds stretch for the muscle that you are working on. Another trick that we can use is called neuro reset. So basically, when you are stretching and you are going in the opposite position of the muscle that we want to stretch, like if I want to stretch my chest, my stretch is an intra-rotator. So when I contract my chest, my arm is getting closer to me. But if I want to stretch my chest, I have to do in the opposite direction and I will reach a plateau. The neuro reset is that I kinda contract my chest after stretching, so I stretch, then I relax. I try to push inward, so I am contracting my chest just for a few seconds, then I release, and then I try to stretch again. This creates a neuro reset. You can just try it and you will see how amazing it is, and you will get a wide range. So we are now using two tricks. We are using our breathing, and we are using this neuro reset to get a wider range, and we also know that we have to work actively in this new range. There are some exercises that I usually show in my videos, especially in the short videos of what we can do. Or if you have any question, you can just contact me. I will be more than happy to help you to get more flexible or tell you what is best to do in your specific case. Another small trick is to work with nerve glides. Basically, with nerve glides, we are flossing the nerve back and forth to teaching the body that the nerve can flow, because usually there are some frictions in when the nerve is moving, and by doing so we are it's like putting some oil where the nerve is flossing. But this is something a little bit tricky that I just wanted to mention. You usually work with nerve glides only in some specific cases, but it was I think helpful to just say a few words about it. And now we can go to what I think is the most important part, which is work with bottlenecks. What does it mean? Let's say you have some pain in your lower back, you have tight hips, you feel this tension in your legs even while walking. And if you feel tension inside your hips, what you try to do? You just try to open your hips like the classic butterfly exercise. Maybe you use a little bit more weight to just go down with your knees. You try over and over again, but you maybe get a little bit of progress, but then you stuck. The problem is that there are like 25 muscles, I don't remember the exact number, involved in the hips opening. So if you are stretching one muscle, probably there is another muscle that is blocking that specific muscle that you are stretching to stretch even further. So we have to discover which is the bottleneck and work on that. Then once we are working on our bottleneck, which depends, we cannot say is that one or that one, because it's really case specific, so it depends which is your situation and what you are feeling. But once you are working on a bottleneck, you are getting this new range, and then you get a plateau, because now the bottleneck is moving somewhere else. And then we have to discover which is this bottleneck, and we will work on that bottleneck. So once we have discovered a new bottleneck, we will work like 10-15 days on the new bottleneck, like unlocking a new range. Once we're working on it, we'll kind of unlock new movements. So it's not going to be the bottleneck anymore. There will be another one, and we repeat this process over and over again. Usually it's something that you have to do with complex joints like hips and shoulder. But if you do it properly, you will see how fast you can progress. So these are the principles of stretching. There are hundreds or maybe thousands of exercises that you can do, and you have to just find out what is right for your specific case. Basically, what's the starting point, the pain that you are feeling, or some performance that you want to achieve, like getting more flexible or whatever is your goal. And then you need a specific program which is tailored exactly from you. If generic program, it's quite unlikely that it's gonna work out for you, because we are all different. We do different jobs. You stay seated too much, or you are working too much during the day or whatever you are doing, you are creating a different stress on your body and also the sport that you are practicing. Maybe you are maybe you swim, or maybe you are a runner, or maybe you lift weights, or you play football, tennis, or whatever. So the point of stretching is that it should be really case specific. You need something, as I said, tailored exactly from you. You also have a good news, which is you don't need that much time as you think, because you only need a 10-15 minutes routine and it'll be enough to see progress, and to see progress really quickly. So this is all I wanted to share about stretching and about my stories, because to learn everything that I'm saying here in this video took me years of pain and frustration. That's why I care so much about this subject. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you like it, leave a like, leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get more news about the stretching and hybrid training, which is the training that I want to promote. Hybrid training is basically about weights, getting stronger, getting more flexible, and endurance. So working on cardio, running, increasing your stamina. So if you're still here, I'm more than happy to have shared my experience and my story with you, and see you in the next video.